This is AllReasonNoLogic's King of the Hill, and today we've got something a little different. We took the classic King of the Hill format and threw it into an almost brand new battlefield. And it's a map that's been heavily modified for us by the one and only chronographer, complete with a ring of lava that locks things down for the first 10 minutes. We had no idea how this one was going to play out. It was a real first test run, and to keep things fair and fun for me, Tom, and Prey, we jumped into the middle of the hill. Up the top here, I'm in Eco, Prey taking one of the side lanes defending, and then Tom all going into one of these, what do you call them, bastions out the side of the hill.
Well, out on the wings, I'd call them.
Yeah. So this one's going to be molten and messy, and once the 10-minute no rush timer clicks over in about 3 minutes, it is going to be interesting.
Now, you say we did it to be fair. We chucked ourselves in the middle because we weren't sure if this was going to be kings or peasants favored, but we're fairly sure that we were going to get a beating regardless of how it happened.
Yeah, and the likes of Aspera and Wanira, who are also quite regular with us, Wanira, one of our coordinators, have jumped up there as well, not minding if they get the loss. We've got a couple less familiar King of the Hill fans, I Kill You for Fun and Jay Frost. I have seen their names before, joining us up on the hill, so we'll see how they do on those edges, those southern edges of the hill. Now this map, the way these work, you can see lava is all the way up underneath the very bottom of the map.
Self-destructed.
You can play with the heights of maps. I'm not going to go into the details, but to dumb it down to my level,
because you can't go into the details. You don't know how to change this.
I did get shown actually, and it's really quite interesting. You pick points, and to keep things, like I said, dumb. You pick a point on the map and it identifies every other element on the map that's at that height, and you modify that specific height, and then you got to try and make the terrain work to your advantage. So quite tricky. A lot of trial and error to get these working, and we very much so thank Chronographer to doing this for us, giving us another massive map. You can see out here it's usually water on the edges. We're getting a lot of dirt, so we've got some economies coming up off of purely energy conversion. And is it Flats and Forests, or one of those maps where there is no metal? Kind of like that situation for these guys, and you can see getting up to T2, it does work. It's a little bit slower, but with all the action happening in the middle of the map, we should see some big economies on the edge of the map soon. 1 minute left.
Having a quick look around with 1 minute to go, kings certainly have very, very sparse defenses around the wings, which could be a big problem, but from the peasants we're not seeing too much in the way of T2 spiders, so that should be good, at least for the time being, but we'll see if that becomes a glaring weakness. The entrance that I'm taking is pretty well defended. I've got myself 8 beamers, getting a couple of rattlesnakes, and we've got a few dragon claws coming up, some pop-ups here and there too. This should keep this one nice and safe and protect Twig's eco that I am relying on. With only those 2 mexes, I decided not to go too heavily into the eco. Just make sure that this side didn't fall, and that we had a good launching platform to run from. Around the top. Twig, you failed to get an APHIS. I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah, I like the slow and steady builds, making sure units come out. I could see that we didn't have much to push with at the start, so I decided I'm just going to go with the easy fusion and into bot lab.
And there is the receding of the lava.
Nice.
And we have the game is afoot. We do have a big attack coming, thankfully at my entrance. A lot of T1 units, but they are going to pass right below a couple of tarantulas, which will give vision for those rattlesnakes. Great little bit of damage going to be done before they even make it to the front lines.
What game are you playing?
What did I call them?
Tarantulas. Reminds me of that song.
Tarantula. Ba-dum, ba-bum, bum, ba-dum.
That's exactly what I was saying.
I know.
It does feel like a game of Raptor Crater over here for you, with these game of Raptors, I should say, with all these defenses. It reminds me of the evolving comms and the hordes of Raptors that fly at your base after a certain no rush expires.
I thought I'd give it a bit of a go here and just try this one out. See what happens if you have someone like me running defensive with an eco player behind. And now that that's all held nicely, I think going into a few shield generators just to deal with any sort of long range bombardments. But then after that, I'm going to start scaling my eco at least a little bit, see if we can't get some damage done. The big downside, though, is that these gates, almost all of these ramps, are moderately wide open, which means that by going that defensive and by having the wings not go offensive right out of the gate, we are not bombing down most of those entryways, which means we're allowing defenses to come up, jammers to come up, radars, mines, the whole 9 yards, and we've ceded a lot of control to the middle ring, which is something we probably shouldn't have done.
What's really been a fail by us is, I mean, my role's primarily eco. Finally going into that APHIS that you wanted me to get. We would typically probably see more units as a whole out of Kings at the 10-minute mark, because the real advantage for Kings is that you're going to all be on T2 at the 10-minute mark, whereas the peasants, unless they come in eco, aren't going to have a sizable army. And we've definitely not taken advantage of that, apart from Wanira, who did push this base quite hard. And what is quite... Oh, did forget. I think that was me. That was potentially me up here. I can't remember.
Yeah, that was your recluses that you sent across.
That's right. Getting that fusion up, always nice to pick on that spot where the geo is so close to the edge. Similarly down south, we've gone with T1 and some gunslingers, which I'm not microing at all, to push this lane here. You can see how much easier it is to push at this stage of the game rather than a little bit later, as you guys will see soon. What I was going to say is, what's interesting about this modification is, in both situations, it is a bit of a defender's advantage. You have to go up to get to the Kings, and you'll also have to go uphill to get to the peasants now, rather than continuously downhill. So a little bit harder for the Kings to go and breach those bases. But what is different is there are a few points. If we just grab any bot and press F6, it'll give that overlay of the terrain. You can see there's a few sneaky spots down these hills that you can still sneak down. So can take advantage
one thing
of that.
Just note, you can see a lot of craters in J-Frost's base. That one recluse keeps popping up and sniping bits of eco. Not enough defenses around here and no reaction to try and deal with it.
Yeah, J-Frost did get pinged a lot at the 10-minute mark by myself. It's like, where are your defenses? Get your beamers up as Armada. Or as it got pointed out in one of the comments of last week's game, go your Dragon's Maws and your Dragon's Claws around the edge. They can be built very close to the edge. They don't need the range, and their DPS is higher. So definitely get amongst them. Getting so close.
It's 0% just there, that fusion.
Oh, wow. And a nice D gun. Nicely done, J Frost. We definitely need more aggression on the south. Oh.
Yes, that was one of the things that I was certainly going to comment here. The defenses are now partially set up here. There's a minefield. We've got a group of welders and some snipers right in front of my entrance. Unfortunately, the opportunity to attack was very much so lost, and then Tank Tom, now that he does have units coming out, has sacrificed three lots of fiends into that same defensive point, and is also running them in front of the spiders. As Kings, you really can't afford to be wasting resources in the first critical engagements.
What happened?
It just allows the peasants to scale.
I'm going to pick on Tank Tom here. He has ecoed more than I have in this game. I don't know if I'm criticizing myself or him more, but I felt that there weren't enough units out, so I just continuously built units rather than scaling that eco that the central player usually does, getting up multiple aces. So I'm going heavy into eco and no pressure getting put on this corner of the map. I've decided I'm going to try and join forces with the top lane up here, because we need to breach the peasants at some point, otherwise this is a guaranteed loss for us.
In the current configuration where you have 7 kings, the 7 kings gives you 1 king for each wing, 1 king for each entrance, and a king in the middle. You really do have to play your roles. If you're on the edge, you have to not worry too much about the defenses, and you have to have units out of that 10-minute mark. If you're in front of one of the entrances, you've got to have some T1 support to go with those attacks, as well as some good strong defenses. And if you're in the middle, you definitely want to be ecoing as hard as possible and just coming online at that 15-minute mark, hopefully with 5 to 6 APHIS to just power down some areas with T3.
Hmm.
But because we had several wings that weren't on the aggressive side, it was very, very difficult to make those sorts of decisions. J Frost had an army at the 10-minute mark, but it didn't march out till about the 13-minute, and
It was T1 as well.
that
Yeah.
army was T1. And that's and because of that, and because of the no defenses around the actual cliffs, that was certainly a hard point. Tank Tom fell into a similar trap. He did manage to use his termites to get over the hill and pop some eco below there, but now that is quite the defended location. But again, none of the ramps really got very assaulted at that 10-minute mark, and control of the outer ramps is incredibly critical. Once you
Unfortunately,
get
Tom's
past
just
those
feeding them as
defenses,
well with these units. You've got to really build up and push, especially when there's these sort of these defenses that you're talking about.
I think that's the problem just in general, across the board at the moment. Most of the units that are being made are feeding right now. They're not getting the damage done that they need to, or they're dying to comms. And a lot of the reclaim, at least from the not right now, not so much right now. The reclaim isn't where the peasants are picking it off, but a lot of the reclaim was where the peasants were able to grab it, as compared to what you want, which is the kings grabbing it.
Got that push happening finally on the top left now. I've got a bunch of snipers. We've got 9 of them, supported by welders on the front, and getting ticks in there for the vision spam from 2 labs going in. And we've also got Wanera coming through with that Stylight, which does a lot of damage. And we're going to see if we can get through to this geothermal here that we didn't quite have sight of yet, but we just know that it's probably there. When those things go pop, they are huge. It's like a nuke almost.
One thing that I do want to point out, the defensive ramps for the peasants give you an amazing amount of line of sight if you build radars on the top and put units on the top. It was hard for me to engage even with snipers into this, because of the massive amount of vision that they were able to get, even without having ticks and me having cleared out their cameras. They still have phenomenal vision going down that hill.
Yeah. Spear are doing really well in the evening of King of the Hill, or our evening anyway. Pushing really hard continuously throughout this game and getting some early vanguards out, which are going to be the real difference here. They're targeting on that commander there. If we get a chain reaction, we should see the T2 production go down. A couple of snipers left. Are we going to see the Geo go?
Commander has died.
Hopefully we'll see the Geo go. It's taken a little bit of damage from that comm explosion, and the Vanguards really, there's nothing that can counter the Vanguards right now. Those Sheldons will take ludicrous amounts of damage before they even get in range for them, and this push is just going to keep going. If anyone can get some extra units in with them, this should be something that can sweep around the map, at least in one direction. But we do have a counterattack coming at Tank Tom right now with a large number of recluses from 2 different players. Unfortunately for the peasants, they haven't coordinated quite right, so they are popping up in bursts. They're popping up in small amounts, not as one big unit. So those twin guards doing a great job of cleaning them up, and then the other half of them staying back below on the peasant side, used for defenses. Does look like the mass is coming out of Tank Tom now that eco has been brought somewhat online, and we have a large amount of grunts and fiends heading on down towards the ramp. Unfortunately, very, very well defended by beamers. This is the sort of thing where if you're going to do this, you do have to back it up with some sort of Sheldon, something along those lines with long range, so that you can take out the units while you're losing your own, and make sure that you've got some res spots in the background to clean all this stuff up. But that is
Tank Tom
easy to say, not easy to do.
Tanking those units, that is a lot. Oh, it hurts. That's just metal disappearing into a beam of lasers.
This attack is pointless. Until you have something behind it, these units are not getting any further forward other than the random lucky unit. If you are going to do this, you need, as I said, you need to have something. If there were vanguards behind this, no worries, keep pushing.
Ooh,
but there's not vanguards, so run this down the other ramp and help the pink player. You do not have to attack your own ramp, because right now, if all of this spam was heading down this side and scouting for the vanguards, sweeping up towards the entrance that you want to attack through the top, there's no defenses up here. There's nothing. This is so much metal that could be
Look at
used,
that
that could
damage
be
efficiency,
getting
Tom.
use.
40% damage efficiency, which you should not be seeing in any game. That's like, you can do spam. Don't put
Look,
fiends in the spam.
but look around the side of the map where we do have a cracked entrance.
Yeah.
Any direction, go down here and go in any direction, out to sea, up to top, down to the bottom, all the way around the outside of the map. This could have won the game.
Yeah.
Tank Tom's amount of units here could have easily won the game if it had just gone around the map. And this is, it's easy to say those things, seeing all this, but you don't actually know what's available when you play the game. But you can make very good assumptions. If you can't make it down a ramp, then they've put a lot of resources into defending those ramps. Therefore, they won't be elsewhere.
Yep.
And that's one of the key things. And I'm doing it too. I'm continuing to assault this heavily defended ramp, and I keep losing snipers because they have a high ground vision advantage.
It's really tricky. I got stuck in that. I mean, this player here, J Frost, did fall. Unfortunately, a few naive decisions on unit placements, tower placements, and simply what to build meant that the base here fell quite early in the game now, and I'm having to now take this position of worrying about quite strong economies. We have some very regular names. We've got Small down here, Primo's down there. We got Uzi, who's in these games all the time, know exactly what they're doing. So really, few really good players there. This is a lot of constant pressure. Oh, and ambassadors, which are illegal in this game type, but we don't know how to turn them off.
They're illegal up to the 15-minute mark, isn't it? So I think they're all good at the moment.
No, there's no ambassadors or what do we call
which definitely turn them off then.
Hey,
there isn't a setting in game to do it, but you can write a custom code to do it.
If anyone's got a code to turn off ambassadors and arbiters in a game, we'd love to have it for specifically thrown.
One of the reasons that we do prevent certain unit types. So if you look at these vanguards that are shelling in, that could be prevented by a shield, but a ambassador or an arbiter, there is nothing that you can do to defend that. And if you look how densely packed areas like myself is, like the front entrance between myself and Espera, the middle, any of the wings, it doesn't matter where you fire, you're probably going to hit something within 1 or 2 volleys. And it's almost impossible for the Kings to do anything about that. That's why we have the rules about not using structures offensively. It's why we have the rules about not using missiles offensively.
Yeah, when you're really being an MVP right now, along with Espera expanding out and around, taking out bases continuously, this is what you want to do. You want to breach an entrance, and you want to just work your way around, because they're not usually defended from the sides. They're more so defended from the fronts.
Exactly. And imagine if this had the support of the of all of the yellow units that got thrown away down the ramp.
Yeah, Tom, I think's finally learnt sending stuff elsewhere, and we'll see how. I mean, look at this. We're going to get just a few units going through here. I actually reckon they might even get up, some of them.
I think there's enough defenses to stop it. The LLTs, even though the pitbulls aren't the best to deal with it, there are units coming in along the way, and there's also a second line of defenses. Yeah, the wind is exposed, but the core base isn't.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that was only a handful of units as well. So, Mammoths, though, can probably get up these hills, I reckon. Yeah, they can.
And Mammoth's quite the chonky. But again, the smartest direction of attack is down the ramp that's already been taken.
More damage being done there, very nicely done out of Espera and Wanira, pushing very hard on the left. Also pushing up here, attacking on multiple fronts. Wanira, I like to see it. A couple of Starlights doing damage, hopefully take out that pulsar, but it might be their doom with this army coming around the corner. Good timing out of these mammoths.
Way too much for a couple of Starlights.
Yeah, good timing out of these mammoths, but they're not going to get much done if they just target this Prude. The Prudes have so much health. You want to go for the build power to start with. Although very chonky, mammoths don't do a lot of damage.
So while things are slowing down, we've just got one mob of units that are working their way around the map, and most elsewhere is just passively defending. One of the things I want to talk about is the trap that I fell into. I did not need these snipers in front of my base. I had plenty of defenses. If I just whacked down a couple of pulsars, I could have just and a few more of the pop-ups, either dragon claws or the pit bulls. I could have just left this entrance to do what it's doing with the spam running down and this amount of formidable defenses. The shields, if I needed to, I could have added more shields. I should have just been focusing on either eco or helping push down one of the other ramps. I could have had my snipers behind all of your Thors over here. I could have just told you, Twig, push those Thors down this ramp. I will back you up with snipers, and that would have easily crushed this ramp. And if we crushed that ramp, we could easily crush these two wings, not even a question. That would have then meant that Winera was nice and free to keep going down along the ocean, where he currently is now, and it would have closed off one of our biggest defensive weaknesses, which is this empty wing that we have up the top. Oh, that's going to be a juicy explosion.
Yeah, this is going to happen, I think.
I do love the chain reaction, especially when it's all connected to wind. There it goes. Lines of two, people, lines of two. However, that being said, where this is right now, in the very corner of the map, if there are enemy units in this corner of the map, you're probably in trouble. So I don't actually blame you for for building it nice and tight over there. See, look at this. We're looking at this push right now. These Thors are thundering on through. They're taking quite a lot of damage because of the angles and because they are having to stop and slow down to deal with these Razorbacks. But if there were 20 snipers behind this, I reckon that would have been quite an easy push to win because 20 snipers do great work.
What I actually really struggled with this game is just getting these Thors around. They got caught on these hills quite a bit. As soon as there's a wreckage like this, they don't, even the Titans, they don't walk up these hills when there's so much metal on the ground. I was just living with these EMPs, which I absolutely love, by the way. You can see how much damage they did. They went from a losing situation to a winning situation. These 3 Thors and a couple, what are those? The SARS? Are we going to see a breach up here? Yeah, that's a lot of vanguards. They should take these out. Scruffy though, getting in position with the commander. Nicely done.
That is one of the things you have to be careful of, is those comms, and the spam just is not set up right now to go where it needs to go. We really did need to. If I'd been able to pour spam down this line with you and back it up with the snipers, or even some vanguards, anything along those lines, I reckon we could have made a very, very solid push here. Unfortunately, you definitely do end up stuck in your own head when you're playing the game like this.
And that's exactly what happened here. I got so focused on when I saw this amount of vanguards and how there's no player, J Frost disappearing. I mean, trying to rebuild here, but it's a slow process. I was like, I need to defend this entrance, otherwise it's game over for us, especially with Winera's push down the left. I felt that this is my job to hold this lane while he works around the back, does the reach around.
One of the questions that I'd be very interested in hearing your thoughts on, would you have been better off going down the ramp, like we were saying with Tank Tom's units before, going down the ramp that had already been cleared and working your way around the outside?
100%, but I would have only been able to do that. I would have only been able to do that if there wasn't such a strong presence here. If I disappeared off of this lane, that would have been up and over into my eco, into my build power.
Right now we have what I would call almost a pivotal moment in the game.
Yeah, I'm just about to do a thing, actually. If you just
Winera's got his last 2 vanguards on the low ground just over here. Yeah. And they do not have any vision.
Can't miss this though. Sorry. This is the one thing I actually did well in the game.
Oh, a tick run by?
Yeah, I noticed that there were no more spam units coming out here. I mean, I just built these welders, but ticks. Okay. And that just clears out that economy. That made a huge difference on pressure here. This
just having a quick look to the left, single vanguard left from this assault, and look at it's in range of all those APHIS but no vision, and so it didn't know where to fire those shells off. This could have been absolutely pivotal if because this is essentially 8 APHIS economy could have been blown up with just a couple of shots fired in there.
Sometimes you got
No
to
way,
guess.
no way to know to do it, but that's how close it was from clipping off that extra wing, closing off yet another attack, and then leaving the peasants stuck on exactly half the map, which could have been a very, very big thing.
Got so close to getting in and getting this AFS, which would have chain reacted with this whole eco. I just
that
watching
would have
this
been
back,
nasty.
I cannot believe how close that was just then. That's 3 different situations now where we could have had an absolute pivotal point in the game. And we're back to it. We're back to the grind. I've pretty much left the greatest metal field wreckage up here of 130,000.
Speaking of
140,000 metal up there.
Speaking of the grind, it looks like after 15 minutes of pushing through the one spot, Tank Tom has managed to make some progress in the top section. Unfortunately, the second wave, oh, that was the Vanguards?
The Vanguards got through.
As I was saying, that's exactly what was needed, some long-range firepower. Again, though, we have Vanguards that are so close to shelling into the enemy at the moment. Unfortunately, the spam is just too divided at the moment and isn't protecting those Vanguards. Push everything towards that one side that the Vanguards are attacking to, and just focus down on the one player. These ticks are taking too much attention away, and the unit's just not protecting.
Surely they're going to get there though. You've got the build power in vision, and it's in sight. There's bubbles. There's bubbles. Some big bubbles.
Yeah, but there are shields, but this is a lot of Vanguard. There's a
lot
lot of Vanguard.
How many shots does it take to get through a shield from a Vanguard? Probably only about...
That is a really good question.
4 or 5, I'm guessing. Maybe a few more.
But the shots aren't always landing where they need to land. The spam needs to build up for a moment. And this is one of the things. You have to choose whether you build your spam up or whether you trickle it in. But right now, if all that spam was built up for 30 seconds, that would just completely overwhelm this. There is no anti-spam here.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened with these ticks. I have one lab building them up and one lab that was feeding through, and that build up.
That's kind of what's happened, but they're so spread out that they're taking the shots from absolutely all the defenses right now.
I'm just failing again on the south. I'm going to keep my attention up north.
It does look like we have...
Up.
Speaking of the south, the first Kargi push is heading on up into what was J Frost's base.
Commander has died.
It does look like there is a Thor there to help clean this up, but the Vanguards are shelling now as well, so these shouldn't make it too far in. But the Kargis, if these spread out and they didn't walk in the wrong direction initially, could have gotten a lot deeper. This could have been enough to take out all of your construction turrets if they'd pushed just that little bit deeper. But with stumbling around, with trying to go around the outside, they certainly have run into additional Thors and additional units and given plenty of time for the Vanguards to fire in. I'm even turning the Vanguards around because I know that they're not a threat anymore.
Yeah. What I could have done then is use this Thor on the lower level to launch a missile up and stop them when they came over the hill, but honestly not that much loss there considering the amount of Kargis. J Frost, reset again. But at that stage of the game where you're actually better off to get a constructor and go up over here. Exactly what Aspira's doing. Go and build another base. And build
exactly.
Build it off of res box.
So one thing that you definitely need to do if you're Aspera and you've got this much metal is slightly better ability to spend it. It is slowly ticking down now that the Titan is coming down, but it has been overflowing for a little while there. You got to really push that through. The really unfortunate thing is that looking at the map right now, there are so many vulnerabilities right now for the peasants. All any of us have to do is push down any of the ramps that we have already cleared and then walk towards the enemy. That's it. All we have to do, Orange needs to go down, you and Orange need to go down the map, the entrance that you're not going down, and you have to deal with, like 100 ticks to get through?
Yeah.
So scary.
I need to keep some units here, but what I should have done is drag like one SAR, one Thor, one Titan across, because yes, you're exactly right.
And again, I'm still hammering, and this is not unique to anyone in this map. I am still hammering the same entrance that I have been completely unsuccessful at breaking through, and I'm doing it very, very badly. I have a large amount of vanguards right now, and I'm up against a rattlesnake and a pulsar, and I really could just be throwing spam at this problem and moving up and getting into position to shell, because all I have to do is get towards those mexes. Oh yeah, that was dumb.
Getting greedy on the reclaim. Send a res bot.
Interestingly, this is actually the second assault. We missed the first assault here, but the first assault had, I think it was 6 Karganeths, a handful of Shivas, and about 8, I think it was 8 Razorbacks.
Yeah.
And they didn't penetrate my wall.
It is a very strong defense, and like having the combination of the pop-ups of all sorts, artillery, the lightning, and then the beamers as well with the pulses for the big units. That's just like our favourite Raptor assault games. They stop waves of units like this, similar to how Tom's assaults were being stopped so much. Speaking of, looks like we are getting through over here. We've got an overwhelming amount of units, but for some reason they're getting split up. Just go straight in.
Speaking of an overwhelming amount of units, down on the at the orange entrance, we have 8 Razorbacks that are trying to push past a couple of beamers.
I remember this.
This is a problem. This is a big problem. And this is part of the reason that I went with this sort of build that I did. Watching so many Kings games recently, the thing that kills the Kings is units getting past these entrances. And my figuring was with 4 Kings that were mostly dedicated to units and eco, if 3 players dedicated themselves to defending an entrance, this would be an unlosable game for the Kings. But too many hybrid roles so far, and so we haven't quite been able to achieve what we want to achieve. And again, just sheer pig-headedness, focusing down the places we shouldn't be focusing down.
Yeah.
And not doing damage we should have been doing. I've had so many vanguards that could have done so much, but all they were doing was shooting at spam.
I just realised Aspira is actually giving a lot of units away, so nicely done there. As in sharing to the team. What's happening here now is they've finally pushed this jet position. Gone, done. Going straight into
now go around the outside.
Yeah, go down the outside, and I'm talking about
around
myself as well.
Around the outside.
Yeah, get a bit of M&M on the game tactics.
Mm-hmm.
This is just so well defended. We already know it, and pushing there. So Tom, Radith, Twig, you suck. All 3 of us suck this game.
Yep.
Pushing the same entrances continuously, and it is not working. Oh wow.
The low ground. Oh my goodness, that is. We've let the peasants build up a lot of vanguard.
57 vanguard. Yuck.
I think you've selected some of our vanguards as well.
Did I?
The enemy offensive vanguards is 37 at the moment. I think you also picked mine in that.
Oh yeah, I did too. But they're still building
that's a lot of vanguard. And
also
next to the vanguard is a really, really strong defense. A super strong defense with a bunch of Thors. That's weird. I haven't seen them build a Thor yet. I wonder where they came from.
Little Halo. Twiggy Halo.
Twig, are those your Thors? Have they turned traitor on us?
This is what I was hating, is how many units and how close I got earlier in the game to destroying this lane. And in the end, it wasn't worth it, despite taking out the advanced geo. A few commanders was not worth it because the amount of metal there in units was insane.
Just having a quick look at the top tank, Tom has pushed down the more weakly defended entrance and is now in through a lot of this economy and is starting to make tracks down through all of the back lines. Has left a couple of fusions, but the Titans are going to clean those up. And this could be a very, very big change if these units can keep making their way down and around the outside. One of the things to bear in mind is, yes, the peasants can definitely pull units to stop this. If the peasants pull units to stop this, they're going to be in trouble elsewhere, because right now they are being kept alive by shields and shields alone. We have 38 vanguards dueling off against each other. at the bottom of the ramp, Tank Tom has been assaulting, and the shields are going down. Unfortunately, though, there are no shields protecting the red vanguards, which means that I think that I didn't actually see what happened here in the game, so I think that the defensive vanguards are going to be doing a bit better. There just isn't enough spam. Tank Tom, now that he's cleared the entrance where he was losing his spam, definitely needs to be sending it back down that way as compared to around the long way. But again, there is so much to do as a king. You are microing against an entire map's worth, and Tank Tom is trying to send a big attack around the outside, finding those angles that we talked about before, which is always a good thing. It's just from this caster view, we can see absolutely everything. Like, for example, now it's 56 vanguards on the march.
I remember starting to ping at this stage of the game where it was just me down here. I'm just going to check out these stats. Yeah, 1.8 million damage.
Can somebody tell me how you deal with 56 vanguards? I genuinely want to know.
Yeah, just the way I dealt with it, I was a meat shield. I was donating metal like crazy. I wonder if I actually kept a positive. Oh wow, my damage efficiency went down a lot as the game went on. I was above 100 before last time we checked. Now I'm at 55.
Just one thing I want to talk about here. I can't see where a lot of these units are, but I can see where the shells are coming from. You'll notice that a lot of my vanguards are being set to fire ground, and anytime I see things like the catapults firing, you can see me changing my fire to where they are. And I'm actually quite successfully taking out a lot of these units by just firing where I know the enemy is. Unfortunately, the number of vanguards I have is just too small to be effective against this many. But I think that individually, I think my vanguards were doing more damage than my opponents. If I had gone, as I said earlier on, if I
all these holes.
if I had done what I said earlier, which was remove this wind, I didn't say remove the wind, but if I'd ecoed instead of wasting my time trying to get up this ramp when I didn't have enough to do it, I think I actually would have had enough to duel this off and possibly win, or enough to fight through. Though one thing I am noticing is that at the top of this ramp there are several catalysts that are being built inside of in range of my defenses. And they do have quite the number of kills, so I think these have actually been targeting my defenses. Just remember, do not use structures offensively, particularly missile structures.
Yeah, it's definitely a no-no. I mean, the rule is generally that you can't hit the eco. The way I'd say it is don't shoot above the ramp, and obviously you're going to take out your defenses, which can't be built anywhere else. So yeah. If we can turn those off as well as those ambassadors and everything, that would be ideal.
We did when we built the game rules. We left them on because it was usually only 16 players max, so it was very, very easy for everyone to know the rules and to do them. But as this has expanded to the larger community, we do get a lot of people that are here for the first time or that don't fully understand it. Also, if you notice all the flags running down the side, look at the fire to effect that my vanguards are getting into that big pile over there.
Yeah, you're just launching. Where are you launching? Yeah, over there.
Anyway, we may need to be looking more into just turning them off, because the other thing is we don't really see them running defensively. We very rarely see them being used defensively, so it might be better just to turn them off and take away the confusion.
Just want to point out quickly the damage that the mammoths were doing. Just these construction turrets managed to keep the T1 lab alive, even though all those mammoths were shooting at it. That's how little the damage is out of the mammoths. They just have the health. That's what they're good for.
Actually, that's crazy. Especially considering that they can basically duel a Razorback, the fact that they struggle to kill through a build tower.
Yeah. Well, I just want to point out as well with what you were saying with targeting fire. This amount of vanguards that was down here, when they were down in this lower position here, all they had to do was select all, hit A, attack, and then just do this sort of thing in the base, and just would have been game over. Like that's an impossible amount of vanguards to defend from unless you have a nuke, which are turned off as well in this game. Those ones we can actually turn off easily. We're smart enough to figure that
out. If there are options for it, we can do it. If we have to write something, probably not. One of the big changing points that is kicking on right now is we're just getting this mass production coming on from one of the C players or the low ground players. This huge amount of ticks is about to start running up into my base, and considering just how much has been done damage-wise to my base, considering how little eco I have, this is going to start being a very, very big problem, and it means Tank Tom is now defending my ramp instead of being on the offense. And that is the very last thing that we want right now. We need to be fully on the offensive. Like, just having a look down here at the very bottom, 2 bulls, and I think there was a couple of other units with them earlier on, have made it down into the bottom half of this base. That's all it takes. If you're just in the right, if you just send probing units all around the map, that is all it takes. If they'd been able to clear these fusions, they actually. Well, actually, there is a single defensive Razorback, but had we been able to send a large amount of spam down here with some longer range units, this would have been absolutely massive. Oh. Also, speaking of nukes, we did forget to turn them off, and we can see one being built in the bottom right-hand corner. Yes, we did. That is why you can see an anti-nuke covering our base.
This is not good here. This push getting through. This has constantly been probably the weakest entrance of the night, and finally a big push, and there goes my eco.
Similarly, on my entrance as well, the catapults are firing in as well, so my defenses are now really falling, and the ticks are going to start getting in soon. It does look like this might be over for the Kings. We put up a good fight. We certainly could have turned the game around.
Win.
We had plenty of opportunities to win, but again, that is the hindsight on this one, and we just let the Kings scale that. Sorry, we let the Peasants scale that a little bit too hard, especially in this bottom right-hand corner, and we spent too many defenses trying to crack this top right-hand corner. Sorry, too many units trying to crack this the top side early on in the game, when we definitely should have been concentrating them elsewhere.
Yeah, nice little screen grabber. That is just huge. That is massive RTS gaming for you people.
This is why we love this game. Like, when you zoom down and look like that, it's just absolutely insane how much is on the map right now.
Yeah. Leave comments, by the way. I do zoom in and out quite a bit in these cast replays just to capture everything and to make sure we don't miss too much. Do you prefer the zoomed out mode where you see icons, or do you prefer individual engagements? Let me know your preferences, because it does influence how I do view this game, or at least partially influences it.
But more importantly, tell us how to beat 50 to 100 vanguards, please.
Yeah.
Please, because I've noticed this is becoming a theme in King of the Hill. Whichever team manages to mass the most vanguards or catapults tends to be able to siege down their direct opponent almost regardless of what else is going on. If this were a regular game, I would be trying to counter them with something like a Ragnarok or a. Oh, you know what would have done it?
What's that?
EMPs.
EMP missiles.
EMPs and catalysts.
Well, I should have thought of that because I was using Thors so much and using the EMPs. That would have been quite good. I just need to witness my last little ditch effort to do anything in this game. I knew that there were some unexploded APHISs down here.
And look, just a handful of sprinters. Just a handful of sprinters getting in over here. That's all it takes. If we'd been doing stuff like this the whole game, I reckon this would have happened very, very differently. I know I played well and truly too defensive. I stand by the idea of doing it. But if that's happening, then I need to be responsible for building the defenses around the wings as well, and free up the wings to just completely exploit their ability to go straight into offensive. Just, again, the sort of how we talk about the roles on Raptor Creator, you definitely do need to formulate a bit of a strategy with your team. You can't just wing it and hope.
Battle ended.
There we go, people.
Let's have a quick look at the statistics. The ones that I'm super interested about is the damage efficiency. Almost all the Kings negative, and that is to be expected because they're fighting into lots of other players. But we did have a damage efficiency of 150% out of Winera and 240% out of myself. Tank Tom did bring his did end up with a very low because he was providing the spam. As you said, yours dropped down, but the damage numbers are absolutely crazy. Mine was not actually that high, even though I had high efficiency, because I just never managed to get the units. Tank Tom at nearly 1 million, which is second overall in the match, and yourself, Twig, at 1.4 million. So really pushing it. Even though Wanira did a lot of the damage around the outside, Espera did a lot of damage by proxy with
What
giving
are you
units.
reading, sorry? Damage dealt. I'm at 2.6.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at metal produced. Wow. I thought my damage was a little low. There we go. So not anywhere near as bad as I was saying.
Yeah,
so
you're
even
bad.
with my absolutely tiny eco, so I had a third of Tank Tom's metal, I still managed to do the huge amounts of damage with those defenses and vanguards. Tank Tom, though, with the massive damage taking, keeping all of us absolutely alive. And it does look like DME Zam actually took the cake with the most damage done at 3.26 million. I think he had one of the big Vanguard balls as well as some frontlining
huge
things
amount
like
of
those.
Kargis, I reckon. Zam had,
And the
I
repaired
think.
Zars, I'm pretty sure. Sorry, the repaired Thors, I'm pretty sure.
Very nicely done by everyone. Very unfortunate. I did think we were going to win that one, especially once Espera and Wanira broke around the left-hand side. I thought, yeah, that's game over then, but so many mistakes, and we're very critical of ourselves and Tank Tom because we should know how to do this. We've been doing it for quite some time. We shouldn't have lost that one with that much of an advantage, but really nicely done by this bottom right-hand corner. A great show of resilience out of Peasants and taking that win with just absolute numbers on the board for those Vanguards and quite a few catapults as well. On that note, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this one. Please leave some comments on what you thought of the modified throne. Thanks to Chronographer, I personally loved it, and I think we will start to see these weekly in the King of the Hills for at least 1 or 2 games. I thought it worked well. Let us know how you'd like to see it changed.
Thanks everyone for watching. Like, subscribe, join the Discord community, and join us for these games live on Sunday. Also, make sure to buy our merch. We're a few years away from having merch, but maybe one day. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.